Hi, today we're going to be making a simple flat tray for putting plant pots, small plant pots on, and we're using the hand building technique slab rolling. Okay, I've already rolled my main pieces of clay. That's what's going to take you the longest. Make sure you measure very carefully. So we've got this far. Okay, these are called wear boards. Make sure you roll and store your clay on your work on something like this. So it's a slightly textured, so not really textured, it's a piece of MDF essentially, but you don't want to use your worktop or a piece of plastic or a tray, because anything that's flat and shiny it will stick to. So you want something which is kind of a bit warmer, piece of wood, but like a non-finished piece of wood, if that makes sense. That's in your kit anyway. So then we use any old rolling pin. This isn't ideal because it's got these handles at the end, which if you're rolling a large piece you can get score marks in, so best use a flat one, or otherwise you just have to be careful these bits don't make marks. So measure very carefully. Here's my clay. Keep your clay covered up if you're not using it. This is actually really quite soft, so it's not in too much danger of drying out, but in general you want to keep your clay wrapped so it doesn't dry out while you're not using it. Okay, so we've got a nice oblong base here. I'm using a knife to cut. You can use any knife. This is a pottery tool, but any reasonably sharp knife will do. It's good to have one with a point for making like scoring marks. This is called a rubber kidney. It's nice and soft, and you use it for smoothing out your pottery, your work, so you don't get finger marks and things like that. Okay, so we've got this far, and I'm going to show you how to attach the rest of the pieces. Be careful when you're measuring. I might not have done this right, because when you're constructing, if you have all the sides the same length, then they're all going to overlap each other, and you don't want them to overlap at the corners, because then you'll get, even if you blend them in, you're going to get a bulge. So some of them you need to measure carefully, so they might need to be slightly shorter. You can start by measuring all the same size and then trim them down before you attach them. Okay, so one more thing. Sorry, the next thing. Here we go. Here's a side. You see how loose it is. Not all clay is like this. It does make it easier to work for longer, and to reshape as well. If you have any wastage, you can roll it back into a ball, but I can feel even this is drying out, but you can use your wasted parts, your cut-offs, to make a slip, which I'm going to show you in a sec, which is the glue that you need to glue it together, or use them to make little sculptures or earrings or cutouts, anything like that, rather than waste it, because they'll all bake at the same, all fire at the same temperature. Okay, so here's my long side. And we're going to stick it here, and it's going to go on top of the slab, not on the edge, because if there is any shifting when the clay dries and it shrinks, then it won't just slide straight off because it's sat on the base. And this is the same principle for anything you might make, whether you're making a round mug, for which you would need to shape and dry your main body of clay around a cylinder. Same with if you do slumping, which is where you would have a upturned dome, or any shape really, but it's usually used when you want to achieve a round shape without throwing on a wheel, and you lay it over that and it dries over that. So it's the same principle. Okay. So we get that square. It's obviously too long. I'm going to, I think, attach it first and then cut it off. So to attach it, we need this glue, which is called slip, and it's basically a piece of off-cut clay. Let's see, I've got some in here, which you then add water to. Go little by little, not too much at first. You want to get rid of all the lumps. Use an old paintbrush something that you don't mind breaking. Try not to do it too much like that, because you'll just end up with a splayed chimney brush, and that will be no use to you very quickly. So try and use the side of your brush. Scrape the bits off, the messy business. Wear an apron. Be prepared to get your hands dirty. Well, hopefully that's why you're doing this in the first place, to have some messy fun. Don't worry about getting clay everywhere. There we go. So it's kind of like a thick paste, not too many lumps. You can keep adding water to it. Be careful of adding water if you see cracks and things and you think, oh, I'll just put some water on and blend that together, bring it back together again. Really, if you're just putting water on top of a clay body, all that will happen is the water will evaporate and nothing. You may even get more cracks. So when you're blending clay, when you want to stick two pieces of clay together or mend a crack, you really need to blend some of the underlying body of the clay together so it melds and becomes one, because it's the clay that does the job. The water, of course, will just disappear. Think about it that way. So you need the clay to stick to itself, and the water is just the lubricant that will then disappear as it dries. Okay, so that's a good consistency. So we're going to use the slip and score technique. So carefully take your piece, and you need to do this on both surfaces. This is really long, so it's a bit tricky, and it's very floppy. So take the point of your knife or a sculpting tool. This is quite sharp and useful as well. And then we're going to do cross hatching. Onto the surface, not too deep, you don't want to disfigure the clay. Quite a lot in. This provides a rough surface, kind of like teeth or Velcro, that we put the slip onto. You do it to this surface as well, where it's going. Remember, we're going on the top of the base and not the side, so it doesn't slide off when it dries. This clay really is very soft. The more cross hatching you do, the better. Really gives a better surface area for the slip to stick to. Get some slip. Because it's the same substance, it's the same clay that we're using, it doesn't matter, you don't have to be really, really precise. You've just got to get it into the scoring so it sticks well. You can always blend this away with your kidney, or even better, your fingers, if you can't get in with a kidney. Your fingers, you can really feel what you're doing. The kidney's really good for getting a smoother surface, but sometimes you can't get into the corners and the cracks. Okay. Take our piece. Make sure it's straight. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't slip score this edge. Everything that's where two pieces of clay meet needs scoring, needs slip. You don't want to give this clay any opportunity to not stick together. Stick it on, make sure it's aligned. Just going to use the ruler. Try and keep it straight. Always a good idea to support your clay when you're doing slabs, especially if it's floppy like this stuff. And then you don't get wiggles, especially if you're using really big, heavy pieces. Okay. That's going to stick to the ruler. I'll show you this way around. Make sure it's over the edge. And then you want to give it a little kind of wiggle so that the teeth meld together. The teeth of the slip scoring meld together. And make sure you get your end there, especially right in the corner. And this isn't going to be holding water, so it's not vitally important, but it's just nice not to have any holes. Okay, good. Smooth out using your kidney. I can get to this outside edge okay with the kidney, so I'll do that. Kind of want to make sure that it's blended properly, because this is where any problems will occur if you haven't blended it. So this is the same principle for any attachment that you do. So you get a sculpting tool. This has got a nice round back to it, so it's not digging in too much, and you just really gently, and you can only do this by feel to know how hard to press. When the clay is drier, you might need to drag more of the clay up, but obviously you don't want to be making big indents, but at the same time you want to be blending it. Okay, not bad. Finish off with the kidney. Looks alright. Now we need to do the inside. So we want, I'm going to use a smaller brush for this because the big one won't get in. You can sometimes use your finger as well. Shake it right where you need it. Again, it doesn't matter if there's tons, because it kind of blends in, it all becomes one anyway. Don't want it too lumpy, but it's more important that the piece sticks together. In the corner. And that one already, see how smooth the gap there is. Now this brush is leaving marks, it's quite stiff, so I'm just going to use the kidney to smooth it out. Tricky in there, so I'm just going to use whatever finger I can. I also need to do the same in that corner. And I'm not going to put any slip on the outside. We do need to blend it. On the top, everywhere there's a join, essentially. Just trying to get all my lines straight. It's tricky when this clay is so soft. Okay, looks nice on the inside there. A couple of nail marks on my fingers, just use the kidney. And then you carry on round. I'll just show you the end piece again. Slip score, cross hatch. Don't press too hard. Do this end. You need to trim here. This is where you need to measure. Okay, that is exactly coming up to the end of that piece. So I'm going to cut this off there, and this will sit up against it. But obviously if this was slightly too shorter and this was slightly longer, then they would fit differently. There's no fixed way as long as they fit. Okay, just going to trim. Slip. Oh, slip the bottom. Support it. Which end you got your slip on? There we go. Match up the corners. Well, you can see how straight your lines are. Not very in this case. There you go. Give it a wiggle. Try and get it on the edge, because this is the edge that you'll see. So this is the most important one, the outside. There's a little discrepancy between the measurements. Look, it's not tall enough. I'm going to have to shave that off slightly. Didn't measure carefully enough. Then you have to just trim off where necessary. Okay, so that line is nice there. Done it with my finger. Now I'm going to blend. Sitting in a little bit. Just going to use the kidney to push it out. Make sure it's attached at the end. Not too bad. Wanting to push in slightly, so I'm just keep pushing it out, making sure to blend every time. And then we'll do the inside. Okay, good. Smooth that off. Hoping I've blended that enough so that the walls, the sides stay on nicely. Okay, so you've seen two sides. I won't show you the last one, but some other things that you can do now are writing and engraving. My favourite tools, well, the only ones you can use really, something that's not going to drag too much. This is a, I don't even know what this is, a there's like a crochet thing, but probably isn't. It's plastic pointed, so that slides quite nicely through the clay, or a toothpick, something which is pointed anyway. The problem that happens though is that you get little bobbles, but you can wipe those away. Obviously there are other tools that you can buy, but for the purposes of this make, we're going to use these. Okay, so I'm going to write something here. I'm going to, because it's for plants, I'm going to write, doesn't matter which way around it goes, try and drag it. Try and hold this in the direction you want it to go, like a paintbrush. If you know calligraphy, this is where it comes in useful. And you can paint this inside the lines. See, can you see the bubbles? You can either, well, the best time to brush these away is when it's dried a bit more, and then you won't indent the clay. Alright, try not to do too much brushing away now, because you'll just cause more indentations in the clay. So you can scrape those away after it's fired, or just keep going over it until you're happy, or just accept that there's going to be a few bits of pilling. With soft clay it's really difficult anyway. So there we are. Okay, and the other thing you can do is stamps. Lots of things you can do. I happen to have these and thought these would look quite cute because this is going to be for plants. I've got a leaf, flower, apple, and some flowers. So you can put these wherever you like. Oh, cute. Shh. Bored dog. There we go, a leaf in the corner. Okay, then you can put some on the outside as well. I'll do those in a minute. Other thing you can do is perforate. It's quite nice if you're doing something which is going to be a lantern, candle holder, or a little lantern, or just for decoration. You can get lots of specialist tools for this. I don't have any with me here, but you can, they're basically cutouts. So I might just do a leaf shape. First, I should have done it on the inside. First, draw your shape, and then you can pierce it. Now, you need to hold, you need your sharp knife, and you'll need to hold on. Be careful when you're piercing that you don't go too close to an edge, because the thinner a piece of clay is, the more likely it will crack when it dries. There you are. There's one I've got a little bit closer to the edge than I would like. On the inside, it's a bit rugged, so you'll want to smooth that out. You could, of course, which I should have done, use a stamp and then cut out around it. I might do a couple more of those, just for added interest. And then you can paint when you're finished with underglazes, or if you're using mineral glazes, then you do your brush on or dipping. I think you guys are going to be using underglazes, which are coming with this kit, and that gives you lots of chance for illustration, and the colours will always be true as well. Okay, so it's all ready for drying. You want to wrap it or cover it loosely in newspaper, and not leave it in too warm a place, because you don't want it to dry out too quickly. Okay, with that fourth wall, there we have our beginnings of our plant tray. Happy making!